great.
Well, you're big time, man. They got that money. You ain't paying for that.
Guess so.
Tell them, Nick, we got to pay for our flights around here.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Good evening, Facebook, and welcome back to Off the Plate, presented by Young Gun Umpires. Today is Wednesday, June 10th, and on the panel today, we have our usual four-man crew of Nick Swaha, Sean Gertzi, and Jacob Heath. My name is Nobu Goto, and our theme for tonight is going to be umpiring in the 21st century. With our special guest for tonight, who is a former Major League call-up umpire and current ACC and SEC umpire, Jeff Gosney. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited to have you on.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me, and hopefully I can maybe add a little bit to this without screwing everybody up too much.
So now, before we dive into what we have for tonight, please do make sure you give the video a like, share the video, tell any umpire you know that may benefit from what we're doing here about our group, and as always, thank you for your support. So now, Jeff, first and foremost, how did you get into umpiring, and what took you to umpire school?
Well, I was 18 in high school, and there was back in the old days, they used to offer sports officiating classes in high school. So I took an umpiring class. I've always been an avid baseball player, a lot more ambition than skill from that aspect. But I thought it'd be interesting, and so I took that and kind of started working the local stuff, Babe Ruth, some of the travel ball, got into doing lower level high school stuff. And then when I was 22, I had the decision to go to umpire school, went to Harry's in 06, and kind of took off from there. I wouldn't say that I'd ever dreamed of, being in professional baseball. I mean, when I got started, I really didn't even know what umpire school was. The local assigner was like, "Oh, you should think about going to umpire school." I'm like, what is that? I had a couple of friends that went and kind of helped me out and steered me in the right direction. But then things took off from there. I got a job in 06 and I spent 10 years professionally working up, like you said, through the big leagues. 14 and 15, my last 2 years in AAA. I worked part-time in the big leagues, both on the field and in replay. And then my time there ended sooner than expected and about 99% of the people out there listening to this can understand that, who were in the professional game. But and I then made the transition to college baseball, and I owe a lot of that to Tony Thompson. Those who know him, he was very instrumental in getting me transitioning me from the professional field to the college field almost the next day. And then that kind of took off from there. I started ACC, Sun Belt, and ASUN, and slowly climbed into the SEC. And now I'm just SEC, ACC, and I've been fortunate enough to work a little bit of postseason for the NCAA the past couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about transitions, and feel like we're in an era now of transition, and just in terms of the game, both at the professional circuit and college baseball. And that's why we kind of as a group came up with our theme for tonight, umpiring in the 21st century. We're here to talk about how the game has changed, whatnot, how it changes, how we umpire, how we learn, how the players play and whatnot. And I think the obvious answer, first and foremost, the biggest change is replay. We have it at the major league level. We have it at the Division I level. So I guess, we'll dive right into that first. So Jeff, what is the importance of replay in the game? Is it viewed as kind of like a bailout tool, or is it just a new aspect in the game that doesn't play a big role?
I think we've evolved to the point where it's a very integral part of the game now. I know, granted, I'm 5 years removed from being on a big league field and talking philosophies and that with those guys. But even at that point, they looked at it as it was an extra umpire. They were very welcoming and and embraced replay, as do I'm 100% on board with replay. I think it's for the better of the game. And anybody who has worked, and I don't use this term as higher level as in, the big leagues or AAA or anything like that, but anybody who's worked a higher level where there is that pressure to go out there and basically be perfect every night. Replay is that tool that helps us almost achieve that. You have no more Jim Joyce or Don Denkinger plays. You can walk off that field knowing that basically every call was, I don't want to say perfect, but 99.9% correct. And that's, there's always the running joke at the professional level. You never want to open up Sports Center or baseball tonight, and I think that has really changed that and has shown that not only do we as umpires get a good majority of the calls right, but some of them are very difficult. We have a very hard time getting that call right, and it shows there's a lot of moving factors to that. And I just think replay is definitely for the betterment of the game. And anybody who's worked replay, I know it's relatively new at the college level. SEC and ACC have been using full replay now for, I'll say 3 years, counting this year. But everybody at the Division I level on both those staffs are very embracing of replay, and they think they are glad that it's here now. So I think it's a great tool and resource, and I think 10 years from now we won't even look at it any different. It'll be like you guys played without replay? Really? How did you do that? There were some tough calls. How did you guys get those right without replay? I mean, we were pretty good kids, so I mean, but I think it's a very good part of the game, and I'm very glad that Major League Baseball was able to pioneer that and get to the point where replay can be effective within the setting of baseball.
And you somewhat alluded to it, and when it first came up, and especially in all sports, there's those people that are very hesitant about it, and they want that the human factor to not leave. And what do you say to those people that, especially still now, that say that they still want that human factor and don't really agree with the replay?
Oh, go out there and miss a call and have it decide the game. I mean, that's, unless you've been on that receiving end where you've had a call where, and trust me, we've all been there. You have that and you're like, I know I missed that, and there's not a thing I can do about it to fix it. And granted there were 53 other outs in the game to help determine this, but this was a crucial point, and it's a miss that's not going to go away. I mean, Jim Joyce, prime example. I just tell them, unless you live that experience, it's you can't put it into words how to understand that replay is great for the game.
Right.
And one other thing too, I mean, the technology has just gotten so, it's funny with no sports lately, the past couple months, there's always the replays on MLB Network or ESPN or Sun Sports. And I'm watching games back from 2009. And we're not even talking the 1990s, like 2009, watching replays and how grainy the video was. And you're just like, we used to think this was cutting edge. There might be one HD camera. But now the technology's gotten so great, and there's so many cameras at these games between still photography and video that it's exposing, hey, there was this miss. This play was missed, or they actually got this one right. We didn't need to burn the place down. So I think I think technology has really driven the need more so than the missed calls have.
Jeff, I think something else to add to what we're talking about here is when you're talking about, Nick kind of added about somebody not wanting the institution of replay going on. We got to accept the fact that we're not 100%ers. There's a reason why we're out there. And so I think one thing that we got to get the umpiring community to understand is that those guys that are saying that is that, at some point we're wrong. At some point it's going to happen. At some point you're going to kick something. And I think that we have some people have a problem with admitting that. Hey, I might have kicked that play. And look, we all do it here at the lower levels, right? I mean, they're starting to become it more high school. You know, coaches are filming their games, so on and so forth, and you can see it after the fact. So replay is not anywhere near that place. I don't know if it ever will be, but to the simple fact of that, you know, sometimes self-evaluation is the most important tool that you have as an umpire. And I think that honestly helps us, especially when you're in the moment. You know, you're in a big game and you're your first whatever Division I game and you got a whacker at first on a pickoff and you bang it and you're not sure about it and you get the crew together. It's like, well, let's just go look at this. You know, and so self-evaluation I think has to start to become an even bigger tool than it used to be, and accepting the fact of what is.
Yeah. Yeah, we're using video. I mean, the video's out there to help us train and get better. Why not use that video to help us get the call right on the field, keep us out of that jackpot?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Jeff, you said earlier about how the replay official is really an extension of the crew. It's like having another umpire out there. So, you know, a lot of us accustomed to working on the field, we'll have our like daily routine of maybe if we're working the plate or we have the bases, we're on one of the bases, we kind of know what our day is going to be like. Does your daily routine change if you have a replay assignment?
No, I mean, I'm kind of an outlier with this because when it comes to daily routines, I've just gotten to the point where, like, those who have worked with me enough, I'm pretty much a show and go kind of guy. I can show up pretty much before the game, whether I'm working the plate or left field line, and have no issue with it. But working with the guys in replay, their day really doesn't change. You still do the normal things. You get up and try to go to the gym. The only thing that might change is the timing of what you do during the day, depending on when your shift is in replay. If you've got the West Coast games on Tuesday night, you might sleep in a little bit longer. But for the most part, it's there's no mental aspect that you really have to wrap your head around. It's not like going out and working a plate, Yankees Boston, where you might be some apprehension. I've got the Yankees Boston replay game tonight. That's great. I sit in the air conditioning with all the cameras. It's not there isn't that mental. It's not weighing in the back of your mind. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Can you just speak to, like, Major League Baseball has that central hub in New York that they go to replay. Can you speak to the college ranks where you actually have to go under and look at it, and how that can play a part of when you walk out onto the field?
The biggest thing with replay when we're doing it on the field, as opposed to having centralized either in the big leagues or like in the SEC for conference weekends, it's centralized, is just knowing the biggest fear that I have when I walk on the field is that we're going to miss something regulation-wise with replay. We're going to go look at something we can't. We're gonna misapply an XYZ situation with replay. Give a runner an extra base, something to that effect. That's always my biggest fear, whether I'm going on the field as a crew chief or not, because we live and die together on the field. Whether it's two-person crew, 3, 4, 6. If one person screws up an application of a rule or application of replay, we all go down the same ship. So that's always my biggest fear, and it's gotten to the point. Almost every weekend I work, we've all got our little replay cards, and somebody on the crew is just kind of looking at it, and before we walk out, like, oh yeah, you can go look at this. But that's the one thing I can't stress to everybody enough, and is just to know the regulations, because that's a surefire way to put a nail in your coffin, per se, at the college ranks, is screwing up replay.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Not necessarily everything on the field is a fair game out there to go take a look at. So, kind of on that same context, if you're doing a college game where replay is available, do your pregame discussions with the crew change based on that?
A little bit. We'll talk about who's going to, if we're doing replay on the field, who are going to be the two umpires that go. Are we taking the calling umpire or are we not? If the crew chief going to come out and make the signal because perception wise, it might look like he's the one changing his own call or sticking with his own call. But it's basically just for me, it's a brief, hey, we've got replay today. If it's just a wide open play, if it's just a play at first base, one runner, one ball, there's no need to get together. We're just going to go with the headset. If there's anything complex about replay, multiple plays, multiple aspects within play, then yeah, we're going to get together. So just kind of hammer home, hey, we're going to get together. If I'm the crew chief, I'm going to go and I'm going to take you, unless you're the calling umpire, I'm going to take you. So that's basically the extent. The extent with replay. If I'm the crew chief, I like to just kind of ask guys without the card, hey, what are the 6 plays that are challengeable by the coach that don't need that are a crew chief review. They don't need to use a challenge, stuff like that, just to get guys thinking.
Okay.
So now going from the replay official to now working on the field, does it change the way you approach the game as an on-field umpire if you have replay available?
I don't want to. In this day and age, for me personally, no. When replay, let me back up a little bit. When replay started, I believe replay changed the way we umpired. I don't look at the few games I have without replay. I don't go out and umpire them any differently. But when replay started back in 2014, it changed the way we umpired. In the sense, there's no more the ball beat him, he's out. We're being more absolute with calls instead of just like perception wise. So I think that has changed the way we umpire, what we focus on, staying with the play longer, watching the runner with these crazy tags and the crazy swim moves and contortions and the way the fielder's tagging. So I think in that aspect, that's what I see what replay has changed. The day to day, and it's just probably because I work 90% of my games for the past 5 years with replay. It hasn't changed the way I approach a game to umpire, but I definitely feel that it has changed the way we umpire as a whole.
So now going from the umpires to the players now, was the difference noticeable in how the game was played? If there was a replay available, or has after replay kind of established itself within the game?
Yeah, I think now that the players in the field are seeing that, there's no more, and I hate to use this term perception umpiring to the crowd. We're going to call the play properly. So I think that has changed the mindset where you're seeing more crazy slides. You're seeing fielders hold tags on runners when even 5 years ago, they wouldn't have held a tag on a runner. You see a guy pop up on second base and the shortstop's just holding the tag on his hip for 3 or 4 seconds, hoping that he might come off the base by a quarter of an inch because they know replay is going to get it. I think those are some examples of how replay has changed it from the player's perspective.
Jeff, and excuse me, but I want to talk to you about something. You talked about it in the forum. I'm not sure which one. It might have been UTD. I'm not sure, but about talking about a bang bang play, a tag play, and if you can kind of give some, because I like your outlook on it, and it makes me think differently about the way that I umpire bang bang plays that are tag plays specifically. About some guys talk about just watching the ball all the way in. But I like how you said, and you touched on it, about not letting the play blow up on you, because if you stay with the ball too long, the play will blow up on you.
Absolutely.
So if you can allude
Absolutely.
to that.
And that's been a big evolution. It was stressed. I want to say back in like 2007 when I was in the Florida State League, and Bowser was watching me work the bases, and it stemmed from steal plays at second. And there's been a lot of evolution in the 2-umpire system with taking steals from when I got in 2006. But, he stressed, he said, the sooner you can turn your attention from the ball to the fielder, the better you're going to be. And it was just kind of went in one ear and out the other. And then when I went to Venezuela 3 years later and working with David Rackley, and he was talking about that plays at first. He said, what are you watching? I said, well, I'm watching the throw to first base. He said, don't do that. Once you see the fielder come up to throw, focus on the first baseman, focus on the base. That first baseman is going to tell you by the way he's going to receive that ball whether you need to make adjustments, if it's going to be a true throw. And then it was like a week later, I was working second base, and Rack was like, dude, you're screwing up your field plays because you're staying with the ball too long and everything's going to explode. You got multiple moving parts coming together and your eyes don't know what to focus on. So the sooner you can turn and pick up either the leading edge of the base or the fielder's glove, you're going to have a much better grasp of that tag on that runner. Because that as the play gets quicker, that play happens, so quick. Your eyes don't have time to focus on a moving runner and a moving glove. So if you just go to one focal point and let everything come together there, it tends to work out better for you in the long run. And then obviously, everything else after, stay with the ball, firm secure possession, all that stuff. But, I like to just look at the general aspect of taking that play. The sooner you can get your eyes off the ball and focus on either the first baseman or the first baseman's foot for a force at first, or the fielder's glove or where the runner's going to slide on a tag play, I think that you're going to put yourself in a much better spot to succeed.
Yeah, 100%. So when we first started out, all of us, that's what we were taught was follow the ball. And that's still what they're teaching in umpire school. But as I've came up through the college ranks for the 3 years that I've been working, it's actually, I feel like I get a lot more of those calls right, those bang, bang calls when I just focus on the bag. When I just break things down to the most simplest terms, I feel like I can get those calls more right. The other thing is it was one of the questions, and you somewhat brought it up, but has replay in itself changed the mechanics of how we umpire?
Are you talking like the way we take plays? Like the way we yeah, I think it's definitely caused us to realize we need to, and I'm always so hesitant to say this, we need to understand that we have to be moving to an extent through the play because that play is going to develop. There's no more just straight slides and straight into the base, swipe tag, and we're calling them out of safe. This isn't 1980s anymore with Pete Rose. The play is, especially at home plate, is developing so much up until that actual tag happens. And Will Little says it the best at camps. Controlled movements throughout the play where our eyes are focused on the fielder's glove. Yep. And we're moving subtly with the catcher or with the runner to have that runner sliding at us to have that open look. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the out of control movements where we're running through a play, like running through a catch in the outfield. That you don't want that for a tag play. But if you're moving within a step or two here or there as that tag is happening, you see it all the time at the big league levels, and it's because that play is evolving all the way up until that instant that tag happens. If you set up for a tag play like you do a force play and don't move, there's a good chance you're going to miss that tag play because that runner could do so many different things that play could evolve a half dozen different ways from the time you post up for that play and the time that tag actually happens. So I'm always very hesitant to say that, but if you can get in the habit of, you watch plays on some of the Facebook pages that everybody's putting out, or watch plays at the big league level, they're not, when there is a miss, it's not because they're moving. It's because something happened on that play where they might have got blocked or just pressed the wrong button. Call them out when it's safe, but you got to move to see the play. And it's one thing that we always stress at camps, and I think and I think it's great coming from a guy like Will Little when he's teaching at camps, he's got the great theories on the train tracks, but also the keeping the controlled movements through the play. There's nothing wrong with those.
Yeah,
I know that I'm sure they're blowing up the comments about you're telling everybody to move through their plays, and it's not what I'm saying, guys. It's just You have to, just like we've evolved with replay in umpiring, we have to evolve with that play in that moment.
I think he calls them quiet steps. I think the very controlled, like you don't have to be fully hands on knees or really set to take a play. You can be moving slightly as long as your head's not the thing. That's the thing.
That's definitely, I agree with that wholeheartedly, Nick. I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there about hands on knees set. That's what's, I feel like that's the freedom of umpiring after you get out of low A and in professional baseball, hands on knees set stuff. And it's like you can start to move a little bit, especially once you get into the 3-man system. And I mean, you just feel so much, looser as an umpire to be able to move with plays, getting into the wedge. It's a great feeling, especially as a young guy, when you've worked 2-man for so long and you start to get into that 3-man and 4-man mechanics. It's a great feeling. I love how you hit the nail on the head there.
Sean, do we have any questions from our Facebook audience pertaining to continued education at camps and clinics?
Yeah, so we have a question from Matt. All things equal, what are some intangibles you look for as an evaluator at camps and clinics?
Oh, field presence is a big thing for me. The way you carry yourself on and off the field during the game. You want to project confidence, and almost I think one of the biggest compliments I got was from Justin Clem early in my career. He said, "You're subtly arrogant," and not to the point where it's just full on arrogant, but there's a subtle, just a subtleness to you where you don't take everybody knows where that line is. You put that line in the sand and they know to respect it. And I think that plays in the field presence. I like to look. I like to look and see if you know what's going to happen next. This was a big thing when I was at umpire school. Peter Durfee, one of the instructors, he said, when Richie Garcia comes out to see us, he doesn't care. He wants us to get the play right. But when the play ends, he wants to know, are we thinking ahead to that next play and that next play after that? Obviously, we don't want to assume something's going to happen that doesn't happen, but we want to have it in our mind. All right, I'm set up for this play at second base. If this ball doesn't go to second base, if it gets thrown to the plate, where am I going? Do I have to slide to third? Am I popping outside at second? So that's the stuff I like to look at. As we all know, baseball is like a 5% action sport. Like we're needed for 5% of the time. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of time where nothing might happen. The play might be over and be like, oh, nothing happened, so I wasn't out of position. Well, yeah, yes and no. It's a good way to pick up on someone's instincts. If they know, the play ends and I'm behind the runner coming into second base. Well, there was no play. He didn't round hard. I'm fine. Yeah, well, if that ball doesn't get cut and comes here, you're out of position. So you got to be thinking ahead. So that's something else I look for is, do you know where your next potential play is? And, that basically comes back to like an umpire school thing. When you're working the 2-umpire system there's a lot of having to, split your difference and like I said, I don't want to say anticipate a little bit. You don't want to assume, and just have a feel for the game. And I also, it's hard to get in the camp setting. I see it more when I'm working with guys on the field is just how they handle situations. I think those are probably the 3 biggest things that I look for if everything's equal. Ball strike, safe out. Those are 3 of the biggest things that I think separate umpires. And they're definitely separators at the professional level, all the way up. Anybody in AAA can be taught how to call balls and strikes on the computer, but you can't teach everybody how to handle the situation or how to have instincts and read the potential play. So it took me a while to really come around with what those supervisors were telling me in AAA, but that's what I look for now.
Yeah, that's a great point. You talk about how to conduct yourself at, even in a camp setting. So could you just elaborate a little bit on the importance of knowing how to appropriately receive and take constructive criticism?
Yeah, I can try to dance around this one. No, I think it's. I can tell you that when I went to umpire school in '06, we'll call it the old school era, even though I'm really not that old. But things were very um, stern and to the point. You don't talk to us unless we talk to you, kind of thing. And I'm so glad that the umpire school in general has evolved to that, and that umpire camps have evolved from that. I like the conversation. I think any chance you get to talk to an instructor at camp, assuming that they express that you can come up and talk to them while they're observing others. I think it to me it helps me understand your personality. But the way to act, you want to take the information. We always told guys at umpire school, you don't want to pit one instructor against the other. You don't want to say, hey, well, I don't want to tell Jacob, hey, do this different. Well, yeah, well, Nick told me to do it this way. Okay, that's fine. We got two different ideas of, all right, so I told you to take a half step. Chances are it's probably because I really didn't have anything to say, but there's 10 guys around me thinking that I got to tell you something. So take a half step. But just be respectful. Yeah, you're paying money to be there, and you want to get something out of it. And I don't think any camp has ever shied away in this day and age of putting out the knowledge and the material out there for you. But just be respectful of the downtime, the working time, and the time where instructors say, you can come and talk to me. A lot of times I like to have guys come, like if I'm watching some people working inning, I like to have other campers come up and ask them, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think he should do different? Because it gets me to understand, what are they looking at? Do they have the instincts when they're sitting back watching? Because if you don't have the instincts when you're sitting in the stands watching, probably not going to have the instincts when you're on the field. And try to keep the yeah buts, yeah but this, yeah but that,
Amen.
These camps are run, whether it's a UTD camp at Troy, UCU with Chris Marshall and Porter, black and blue on the West Coast. Those guys are running that camp for a reason. They're trying to find guys to fit in their system. Paul Gilliard. You don't go to a Paul Gilliard camp expecting to get in the SEC and Sun Belt, and you're going out there with, a West Coast mentality of how they're going to do things. Like, you want to, and those are just two names that came to mind. I love everybody saying, great opportunities all around. They were just the first two that came to mind. So you want to understand, Troy might want you to work this way. Troy might want you to work outside at second base for this play. Paul might be a little less hesitant because he sees some of the drawbacks of you working outside, and he's seeing guys get burned from being outside on this play. So you got to kind of understand where each camp director and the instructors are coming from. So if you go to a camp that's basically like a two-person camp, you don't want to be doing stuff that's kind of advanced and like out of the wheelhouse, three-man style. You don't want to. You want to understand what the message they're trying to convey. And again, it kind of comes down to playing two camps against each other instead of two instructors. So the yeah buts are, the coordinators really don't have much time for guys like that. And I'm not trying to put words in their mouth and speak for them, but it's just they want someone that they are employable. They're looking for employees that will fit in their system and work the way they want to work. So I think I'm going to stop on that ramble now before I
it's a great ramble though, Jeff, because, and to every young guy that's watching right now, to anybody that's going to camps, thinking about going to camps, thinking about going to umpire school, also to anybody who is starting to walk into a locker room type atmosphere. So that means if you're walking into the high school level, or you're just walking into the collegiate level, how you handle yourself in the locker room is half of your battle, because that has everything to do with how you handle yourself off the field. That's just as important as how you handle yourself in social media. These four guys know how passionate I am about this stuff, because there's a difference and being a good umpire and a great umpire. And it has nothing to do with your on the field ability. Once you get to a certain level that you work on, everybody's sailing, everybody's coasting. There are certain guys that work a little less harder or whatever it is, whatever it may be. But the guys that can work within a crew and can be responsible for their actions and handle themselves well in the locker room, out of the locker room, you know, in the restaurant, whatever it is, those are the guys that people like, that gets back to Gilly, that gets back to Troy and says, hey, man, I really like this kid. I really like this. So, and one of the things, and I've been blessed to be down a great group of guys down here, whether your name is Shane Rigdon, Ray Gregson, Alex Ziegler, you know, Luke Weems, whoever it is, and they've all told me the same thing over and over again. The yeah, but guy, nobody likes the yeah, but guy. Doesn't matter whether you were told something 3 times before. If somebody told you something else, 3 other guys told you something else, whatever it may be, it's yes, sir, gotcha, okay, no problem. If you're not sure on what's going on, go to the person you trust. Go to the person you trust, talk to them. And this, and again, everybody thinks we're talking about from an evaluator point of view. This goes in the locker room too. You're going to run into a partner that tells you to do something wrong at some point. It's going to happen. Your job is not to tell your partner that he's wrong. That's not your job. Your job is to say, okay, man, thank you. I appreciate that. Whether you ask for the feedback or not. And if you don't trust it, once again, go back to the person you trust, get on the phone call. We all know the first person we call after our games. Call that person, talk to them, and whatever they say, go with it and run with it. You know, so don't just think of it from an evaluator point of view or from a supervisor point of view. This is all over the place. You have to handle yourself and conduct yourself in a proper manner, no matter who's talking to you. Let it go in one ear, process it. If it's no good, let it go out the other ear. And that's it. That's bottom line, flat out. And do not be a yeah, but guy. So learn how to control yourself in the locker room. Be respectful to people around the ballpark. And I'm just sorry about the ramble, but I'm just real passionate about that. About that's what makes you a great umpire. Not looking good and not just looking good and knowing every rule in the book and whatever else there may be.
Absolutely. And you know, one more quick thing here is that's very prevalent in the call-up realm too. You know, the AAA guy, you get to that point being on the call-up list because of your skill, because of what evaluators or supervisors have seen, you know, during the season, spring training, Arizona Fall League. But ultimately, you want to make a good impression off the field too, with the crew chief you're working with the crew you're with. If you're with, you know, I spent a lot of time my second big league spring training in Fort Myers with Cubby, and you know, he was always, hey, come over for coffee. I didn't drink coffee, but I go over every morning, and I'd still have yet to drink a cup of coffee with him. But it was just, you know, some people might say, oh yeah, that's sucking up, but no, you want these guys, the guys that you're going to work with, not the guys that are supervising you, not the guys you're going to work for, but the guys you're going to work with. You want them to like you and be accepting of you, because when Randy Marsh is out of the gig now, but when Randy would ask, you know, Jerry Lane, hey, what do you think of the kid? Oh, good umpire, but I really don't want to work with him. Well, why not? Well, I mean, he shows up at the game, he leaves and goes back to his room and plays Xbox. You know, we go out and have a drink, you know, get some dinner. He's nowhere to be found. So, it's kind of, it's crappy in a sense that, you know, the system is that way. But when you look at the big picture, when you think 30 years down the road, when you're the, you know, one of the top 5 guys in the conference or in the league that you're working in, and you're like, well, I don't want to work with that guy. Think back to 30 years ago when you were trying to, when the game was still going on then, and not the baseball game, but the personality game. So it's very prevalent, and it's one of the biggest things. And if you get labeled a bad egg, especially at the professional level, it's so hard to come back from.
Absolutely. I kind of want to move the conversation a little bit over to now rules knowledge. It's just something that needs to get worked on off the field if we want to see results on the field. And I'm involved in training new umpires for my local association, and I think a big misconception that a lot of our new guys have is the NFHS rulebook is actually a novel that's supposed to be read in order, and it's really not the case. And I just feel like, in my opinion, going forward, and not just for you, Jeff, anyone else on the panel or anyone watching, is I feel like there needs to be some education that needs to get conveyed in terms of how to read a rule book. It's something that needs to be referenced and not read. And
absolutely. Go ahead, Jacob, and then I'll. I'll
No, no,
my, my soapbox.
I was saying amen to it, man, because I mean that's something he just spoke music to my ears, because I do the same thing here in my association. Nobu has done his share, Nick has done his share, Sean has done his share. Obviously, you've done more share than all of us in that aspect, and I mean it's not meant to be read from page 1 to page 200. That's not what it's there for. It's meant to be referenced and used in the proper manner.
Exactly, and I think one of the best things that Major League Baseball did, even though I was not the biggest fan of it when they did it, was in 15 when they reordered or recodified, whatever the proper adjective is for it. Being a creature of habit, the past 8 years, what I'd learned, the dysfunctional rule book, and the lack of flow it had, I got used to it. But now that I've spent time, and ironically after I'm out of the game, going back and reading it, it actually does. They made it flow a little better. I don't want to say it's great, but when it comes to the rule book, learning the rules, the biggest thing I can say is to read the case book, read the manual. The high school, I believe, has a case book to coincide. If you get that, to me, that is more important, understanding that, than the way the lawyers write the rules. Because you take the rule book, and especially at the professional level, it's kind of like an act of Congress to change the rule. And the people that write it, there's a reason there's only one umpire on the rules committee, because they don't want us to have too much power. But they let all the suits write the rules, and 99% of the suits are lawyers or some legal background. So they write it in terminology that is fluent to them, but they don't write it in layman's terms for the baseball person. So that's why I like both the MLB and MILB manuals, because those plays and interpretations are written out more as if they read more like a visual play would, and how to apply that rule. And then it gives you the rule reference, so you can go into the rule book and find it in the actual black and white in the rule book, whether that be high school or OBR. College, we're still pushing to try and get something like that. But I would still urge any NCAA umpire to get an MLB or an MILB P-Buck manual, and just familiarize yourself with it, because there's so much overlap between college and OBR, and it's only continuing to go there. And it's a push, I know, from some coordinators to try and align more and more each rule cycle to get to that point. But if you just sit down and try to read the rule book, page 1 to page, whatever, 178, you're going to fail. And that's why umpire school doesn't teach it that way. They jump around to make it flow the best as possible. But yeah, if you try to sit down and read the rule book cover to cover, good luck to you.
And you somewhat pointed at it, but what I have always also seen is that there's so many different interpretations around the country about what a rule is supposed to be. And what you've done with UTD and what UCU has done, Brian DeBrouwer with being their rules interpreter and all that, is you guys are trying to standardize what the interpretation is supposed to be around the country. And what we see on these different, we're going to talk about a little bit more later, is that people have to know what they're saying on these forums, instead of just, in quote unquote, being a sheep and going along with the majority. So getting into that rule book and actually understanding what it says and making your own interpretation, and then actually going out and finding out, and whether it be going into that casebook or asking your mentor or something to figure out what it actually means. That's what, in my opinion, needs to happen more.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest pet peeves I have now, and I'll raise my hand right now and say I was guilty of it when I started umpiring high school baseball, was not taking the time to get in the book and read it for myself, and just taking the word of what Billy Bob Joe said, that he's been doing it for 30 years and that's what the rule is. And I screwed up a lot of rules that way. it really hasn't been until the past, a couple 3 years where I've really taken the time and effort to dive into it, and a lot of it sprung from that first NCAA rules test I took. Based off, I was like, oh, I'm going to take this. I just got out of the game. I'm pretty good with the rules, teaching umpire school, and I failed it. I'm like, how did I fail this? I'm going through and I'm like, well, this is different, this is different, this is different, and so that kind of sparked my interest in going through and really getting more in depth with the rules. But yeah, I think anytime someone tells you what a rule is, you still got to go in and find it for yourself, um, and just cross reference it yourself, so um, where to find that rule for starters, and just that that person actually says it means what it means. Um, I see a lot of these guys. I could probably go on right now and say, 4 strikes and you're out, and there's people out there that probably believe me. Oh, well, Jeff Gosney said it, so it's got to be true. But you gotta, without referencing a rule or the text from the rule book, a quote, you don't know. So I just can't urge you enough to do your own research on the rules, and baseball in general, with the evolution with technology and all the cameras out there, you can't hide behind missed rules because they're on camera now. Low levels of the minor leagues, when I started out, I kicked rules left and right. I was like the best field goal kicker we had on the crew, and nothing ever happened because it was like, oh well, the manager said this. Oh yeah, but after I went in the rule book and found it, like, yeah, but this is what I told him. Oh, okay, yeah, it's fine. Like, it's there was no accountability. Now with all the cameras out there, whether it's mom and dad's cell phone camera or the one press box cam for your high school game, everything's out there. So we got to know the rules. We can't hide behind my judgment. It is this is what I say it is, kind of thing, because there's video out there to show that we missed it. So hopefully, in the way that technology has and replay have pushed us to become better umpires on the field, the technology and the cameras will push us to become better rules umpires on the field too.
Absolutely. Those are really good points. I mean, I think personally, the best physical resource I ever gained out of umpire school is just about a 5-page document, just linking every single OBR reference to its corresponding manual reference by topic. Mm-hmm. And it just cut down the time of, it wasn't, that was not given to us the first time I went to umpire school in 2017, but it was available to us in 2020. And it saved us so much time from just flipping through trying to find this one specific thing, and it really helps out so much in the long run. And I don't mean to get too sidetracked, but I do understand we have a Facebook question. Sean?
Yeah, who did you learn from the most at the MLB level?
Oh, well, for starters, my time there is very short, so the list is very short. No, I'll tell you what, the one person who I think was the most instrumental from the time I got to AAA, and I was fortunate enough to work my very first big league game with him. And at the time that I was learning from him, he was just an up and down guy. But Chris Conroy probably taught me the most out of anybody. When we're talking about full-time guys, older full-time guys, I'd say probably. Tom Hallion was good. Very laid back and very knowledgeable. And Cubby, I really enjoyed time with him. Very knowledgeable. Very good too at handling situations, both because at the time, I'm not sure if he still is, but he was very prominent with the MLB union. So the way he would just talk about different things, and I'm not talking like union related stuff, but just the way he would talk and explain a situation or dealing with a coach, it was just like the light bulb just clicked right away. It went out real quick after he got done talking, but the light bulb sparked real quick when he was talking. His delivery was just great. Those are definitely two of the that I felt were good. I remember my last year of spring training, Cubby came down at JetBlue, and he said, "Hey kid, I really don't like the way you're calling strikes. I want you to change it." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And every about every inning, every 6 outs, he came down and told me to do something different. And he's like, I don't care, who I know Chuck's here watching me, but I'll tell him after the game that I'm telling you to do different things. I just want to see something different on you. And I think that bodes to his character that, he wants to see the AAA guy succeed. He wants them to fit in on the field. He doesn't want you to stand out like we're already labeled because we're the youngest umpire out there, but he wants us to fit in, both on the player side and from the umpire side. And he's willing to go to bat with supervisors, tell them, yeah, the kid looked like shit calling strikes, but he's getting pitches right. And I was just trying to see what looked best on him. So I owe a lot to him. Those are probably the two biggest. Those are the two that I spent the most time with in my limited time, my limited cup of coffee.
So, Jeff, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here because I didn't send this question to you going into this episode, but it always makes a good story. Could you just talk about the day you received that phone call to work your first big league game, kind of that experience?
Yeah, so Indianapolis, I don't know, it's probably about 4 o'clock on, I want to say it was a Thursday. I was getting ready to go. I think I had to work the plate too. But Rieker called, and it was very, for as much joy as that phone call brought, it was also on the heels of very devastating news. It was in conjunction with John Hirschbeck losing his son. I was given the opportunity to go and fill in for Jerry Meals because he was going to go attend the funeral. So with, the great news, there was also that somber moment knowing that I'm getting this opportunity because one of the guys I want to be like, lost his son. So it was bittersweet to say, but I got the call. And it's funny, as soon as I got off the phone with Rieker, I had a missed call from Justin Clem, who had called to say, congratulations and all this, because, working with MLB now, he had all the inside information. So I actually talked to him before I got a chance to talk to my wife. Talked to her, went to the yard, got ready for the game, called my parents, and then tried to book a plane ticket because it was contingent on me getting back to work a day game in Indianapolis. I was supposed to work a night game in Baltimore on a Saturday, and the only way I was allowed to go was if I could get back for a Sunday day game in Indianapolis. Those my international league buddies will understand some of the tone with that comment. But yeah, so kind of stressing out about getting a flight because there were very few flights coming out of Baltimore or DC to get me back for that AAA game that was of dire importance. But it all worked out. So yeah, that was the phone call. Taking it back a step, actually getting put on the call-up list was probably probably a better point in my life because it was at umpire school. Rich Rieker and Rapuano were at school, and it was kind of like a low time. We were transitioning somewhere, and I was with Clem. He was still running things, and Jeff Nelson was there. Jeff had just found out he was going to be named crew chief, and Rieker was like, "Oh, hey, Rap, did you tell the kid?" No, so he told me, hey, we're putting you on the call-up list. And at the time, I had my wife and my son with me at that time, so that was actually a better moment for me. That kind of overshadowed getting the call for the first game. It was just knowing that I had done enough to get to that point to get on that call-up list. So that day weighs more. I remember that day almost more than getting the call for the first game. Not that the call for the first game was bad.
Jeff, I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit too, but you referred to Chuck. I'm assuming that's Merriweather.
Yes.
I mean, just very quickly, I mean, everybody tells me how great of a guy he was. I mean, can you speak to that?
Oh, absolutely. Chuck was the best. He used to always joke. He's like, if I could take half you guys up this year and the other half of you guys next year, I just want all you to succeed. It always worked out that he would come out and see me when my wife and newborn son at the time would come out and see me too. Between I think Charlotte and Gwinnett, and He'd always tell me, hey, bring them out to lunch. Come on, let's go get some dinner. Bring the family. Like the kid's 6 months old. All he does is scream. He's like, I don't care. I got kids too. Bring them out. So, I mean, he was just a great person. Anytime we talked in person or on the phone, he'd always ask about, Melissa. He'd always remember her name and ask about Carter. So he was just a genuine human being and a tremendous asset to umpire development. And just another one that left too soon, both off the field and in life. But he's a great asset to all the AAA guys. Now, I think 99% of the guys, AAA guys from my time would agree that Chuck was always in their corner.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our veteran guys from my local association actually went to umpire school with Chuck, and he really said the exact same thing you did. Just the nicest guy, really good umpire. I don't think I've ever heard a bad thing ever said about him. Sean, what do you got?
So, what kind of hurdles do you have to jump when you're trying to use social media as a teaching tool for like videos and stuff?
Well, my bluntness, for starters. There's a good majority of the time where I type the response out 2 or 3 times before I actually click the reply button. It's just it's trying to explain it trying to remember that not everybody has the experience, and I don't mean that in years per se on the field, but not everybody is equal in the experiences that I've been fortunate enough to have. So I might say, it might be me, my buddy Sean, AAA call, Malika, the 3 of us might be sitting around, all 3 AAA, Sean's going to get a job. I had a cup of coffee and we can talk about stuff without using rule book terminology, and we know exactly what we're talking about. And I think it's getting back to the root, the rule book terminology, so that everybody can understand, and they have a black and white text to go back to and find in the rule book, without a generalization or the way we talk about like in the locker room, just to help everybody understand better. Or if I say it the way I would talk to it in the locker room in AAA, it might only hit 5% of the people. But if I can go back and use rulebook terminology, at least for 100% of the people, it's out there and they'll understand it better, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's absolutely fair to say, Jeff, that you're pound for pound a better umpire than most people you'll run into in the forums. But it really now goes to how we conduct ourselves on and off the field. It's not like we still don't see you demeaning anyone, talking down to anyone, just because you might know the book better and whatnot. We talk about just don't be that bad cop in the forums, trying to jump all over people and speak down to them for maybe getting something wrong, when this is supposed to be a teaching tool that we all use to become better.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's it's been a learning curve for me as well to try and work on my delivery to reach the masses better than how it would if I was in the locker room talking with crewmates, and being direct to the point sometimes isn't always the best approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of just to simplify what I said earlier, what are the consequences for improper behavior online, just in the umpiring world, let's say?
Oh, I wouldn't say that there's any direct consequences. I mean, I'm not gonna say that there couldn't be any blowback from a conference, or the NCAA if things were pushed out of proportion, or if something was too aggressive. But I mean, I think for the most part, you know, nothing. You're not going to get blackballed because of how you respond to a question or push an interpretation on a Facebook page or an umpire forum. Whatever the platform is on the Twitters or the TikToks. There's new things out there. I'm not. Somebody said I watched this video on TikTok. It's play. I'm like, what is TikTok?
Yeah.
I just 30 minutes ago I said I wasn't that old, and now I think I just aged myself.
But Jeff, I want the young guys that are gonna come back and watch this video, the young guys that are watching this video now. And again, this doesn't have to be young guys. This is also for everybody. I think that we can do a better job on these forums of being kind to one another. As going far as to call someone an idiot or to talk down upon someone because you think that your rules knowledge is better than them. That's not your place, man. And it goes back to just being kind to each other. Be respectful to one another. And I feel like I want to say that here now. This is me speaking to every umpire that's on every forum. And I'm not trying to talk out of turn. I know that I'm a guy that has to earn a lot more keep than what I have right now. So I don't want to act like I'm telling anybody what to do, but we can do a better job of being good to one another. This is a brother and a sisterhood. Bottom line, flat out, and we need to start treating it as such. And it's not being treated like that. I saw a guy post a picture and simply say, I was so excited to call 10 games this weekend. I called an American Legion tournament, and I saw the post, and it had over 100 comments. And it was probably 60-40 on the comments, 60 being negative and 40 being positive of how he was. And instead of just saying, man, I'm so glad you got to call some games, whatever it is. If you don't have anything nice to say on something like that and somebody's not asking for feedback, there's no need to be ugly to one another. And look, I get it. If you want to feel like you need to tell somebody something that bad, direct message them, do something like that. But there's no need to go calling somebody out on a forum or to act stupid. And I think that's really is looked down, as you said, upon conference supervisors or anybody else. And let's forget all about that. How about looking at you as a person? How about you conduct yourself as a person in the world, And I'm just big on that, man. I'm big on the respect level that we're not showing each other in every post. And I really hope that becomes a point of emphasis in these groups. That's why we created this. We were tired of people getting bashed, people getting judged. That doesn't go on here. That will never ever go on here, And
that's good.
I want to make sure that's known. That was something for me to say here because this was one of the questions that I put in there, and because I'm big on it. I just hope we do better in these forums as a whole in the umpiring community in the world.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I think as a surefire way to lose a lot of interested prospective umpires is that mentality. We get labeled, the masses, the select few kind of outweigh the good of what's really out there, and the keyboard warriors, can really put that sour grape taste in a lot of newer umpires' mouths or officials in general. I don't think this is limited to just baseball.
Yeah, Jake, we've heard it all the time, and Jacob just said it. This is a brotherhood, sisterhood, and a lot of the times we don't really see it that much. We are our own worst enemies. Like it's terrible. We bash each other. We put each other down. Sometimes people don't have that knowledge of what they should say or whatnot. Well, let's just pull them aside and say, hey, maybe you shouldn't go about it this way, instead of just ridiculing them on the littlest thing. So.
And something else, it just kind of a little pet peeve of mine is, I'm not big on the resume the resume guys I don't I will respond to a comment or a question about what I've worked or something like that, but I don't feel the need to come out and say, hey, I'm Jeff Gosney, 10 years professional baseball, this is the rule and this is the answer to your play. Like I don't think that builds any relationships either. It does. Have there been times where it's gotten to that point? Yes, but typically there's something that's led up to, well, I've done this for X number of years. Like, well, I've did it for X number of years too at this level, at a very high level. So I don't want to say that I've never this, used my experience as a backing for why I feel like I have some knowledge of the rule, but that kind of goes with the decorum that comes on the whatever platform you're on. Don't just say, hey, I'm Joe Schmo, I've got 30 years of XYZ baseball, you should listen to me. Like, it still comes down to what you back up on the field, and I think it's really noticeable um, the guys that can back it up on the field. The guys that can talk in the forums and justify rules can also go out in the field and justify their body of work on the field by the way they work.
That's really well said by all three of you. It really always comes down to how we to what we put out on the field. On the next episode of Off the Plate presented by Young Gun Umpires, we have another special guest with professional umpiring experience. It will be on Thursday, June 18th, and we will have Brian Miller. He is a former AA Eastern League umpire, a graduate of the Jim Evans Umpire School, and a former Jim Evans Umpire School instructor. Currently, he's a NCAA Division I umpire in multiple conferences. Again, Thursday, June 18th, Off the Plate presented by Young Gun Umpires. We're really excited to have Brian. Jeff, just kind of closing thoughts. Do you have any words of advice for any new and upcoming umpires as they kind of dive into this changing world?
Well, yeah, no, you want to have good timing, you want to read the rule book, and you want to go out there and be an approachable guy. You just try and have as much fun as you can. Like I said, I got into umpiring because baseball, I enjoyed playing baseball, and it was something that piqued my interest. And I like knowing more about the intricacies of the rules. So I made it fun and turned it into, a quasi-professional career for a little bit. But if you can go out there and have fun, especially when you're starting out, it's so much easier. Take the good with the bad, and you ask 100 umpires, you're going to get 100 different things about what this, that, or the other thing about what they think is their most important piece of advice. But just have fun. I still, to me, I approach this like a job, like I did when I was in professional baseball. But there's still aspects of the entire profession that are fun to me. It might not be the 4.5 hour games or the missed flight connection, but there's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of family time with other umpires that make it fun, and
Absolutely.
that's the biggest driving point. Like and it's the salt and pepper shakers and the ketchup packets, when you're having dinner after the game and talking about plays and positioning. That's what I still enjoy the most.
Absolutely. For Nick, Jake, Sean, my name is Nobu. Jeff, thank you ever so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure to sit down, talk some shop with you. For everyone still with us, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to give the video a like, share the video, share the page with the young umpires that you may know that may benefit. And until next time, we'll see you between the white lines.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Thanks.